Hello, Chookies! Welcome to the cave. Now, let's begin. Number 7 is Bromo-DragonFLY. At first, it sounds like the name of a failed energy drink, but in reality, it's one of the most dangerous psychedelics ever created. It was first synthesized in 1998 by a chemist named Matthew Parker at the University of Wisconsin. It's technically a phenethylamine, which means it's in the same chemical family as some milder psychedelics, but its effects are anything but mild. This drug binds to serotonin receptors in your brain and doesn't let go. The result is a trip that doesn't just stretch for hours, it can last for days. We're talking 36 to 72 hours of non-stop intensity. That might sound like a wild ride if you're into that sort of thing, but this isn't a colorful light show or a blissful ego death. It's more like being trapped in a maze that's constantly rearranging itself while your body is slowly breaking down. The most terrifying part of Bromo-DragonFLY is the vasoconstriction. That's when your blood vessels clamp down and restrict blood flow. At higher doses, entire limbs can lose circulation, the tissue starts dying, and if it goes on long enough, you could lose a hand, a foot, or worse. That's what happened in Norway back in 2007. A 17-year-old girl named Lena took what she thought was a fun new hallucinogen. Just one hit. A few hours later, her feet started to turn a dark purple, then black. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors discovered her blood vessels had constricted so severely that there was no saving the tissue. They amputated both of her legs below the knees. Her friend, who took the same batch, didn't make it at all. He died of cardiac arrest that same night. Lena survived, but the experience was far from over. She later told researchers that during the trip, she heard a deep, booming voice telling her to burn her body to be born again. She wasn't sure if it was God or a hallucination, or if in that moment there was any difference. Moving on to number 6, which is Krokodil. It is one of those drugs that almost sounds like an urban legend until you realize it's very real and horrifyingly common in parts of Russia and Eastern Europe. Chemically, it's a synthetic opioid and much stronger than heroin. People make it at home, in their kitchens and basements, using over-the-counter codeine pills and a truly terrifying list of ingredients, including gasoline, red phosphorus scraped from matchboxes, hydrochloric acid found in toilet bowl cleaners, and iodine, all mixed together and injected directly into a vein. It got its nickname Krokodil because after a few weeks of use, the skin around the injection site starts to turn green and scaly, like a crocodile, and then it starts to rot. The acid and solvents damage the veins immediately. Blood flow slows, tissue begins to die, and infections set in fast. Users stay conscious through most of it. Sometimes their skin just peels off in sheets. Sometimes their bones are left exposed. But they keep using because the drug hits hard and fast, and the withdrawals are worse than anything they've ever felt. In 2011, a man named Alexei from Russia took his last dose of Krokodil. He had been using it for a while, and like many others, he'd started by injecting it into his arms. That night, he woke up and realized that the skin on his forearm was just gone. Completely. No blood, no open wound, just muscle and bone sitting there exposed to the air. His mother found him peeling bits of dead flesh off like strips of old wallpaper. 2 weeks later, his leg collapsed beneath him, bones softened by infection, eaten from the inside, and he died of sepsis not long after. Number 5 is reserved for devil's breath. The real name for devil's breath is scopolamine, a compound that comes from a beautiful, haunting plant called brugmansia. It's found all over South America, especially Colombia, where the plant has been used in folk medicine and rituals for centuries. The way it works is subtle and insidious. Scopolamine blocks a neurotransmitter in your brain called acetylcholine, which is essential for memory, awareness, and decision-making. With enough of it in your system, your ability to form new memories just shuts down. Your thoughts become cloudy, your sense of time and place unravels, and your personality, the thing you think of as you, starts to dissolve. But the catch is, you look normal. You speak, you walk, you answer questions. You can even smile. You just have no idea what you're doing or why. There's a story that's been confirmed by multiple sources, including a Vice documentary from 2013 about a tourist in Colombia. He was approached on the street by a woman who offered to help him find a bar. That's all it took. Just a little powder blown into his face. Within minutes, he was under the influence of scopolamine. 3 hours later, security footage showed him at an ATM, calmly withdrawing his entire bank account, then walking side by side with 2 men back to his hotel. He let them in. He handed them his passport, his laptop, his phone. Everything. When he woke up, he was naked in an alleyway, sunburned, dehydrated, and completely empty-handed. He remembered nothing after meeting the woman, just a gap. Like someone had hit pause on his consciousness and rewired him in the meantime. For number 4, we have Salvia, Salvia is a member of the mint family, but this one grows deep in Mexico. For hundreds of years, it was used by shamans in sacred ceremonies to receive visions, ask questions, and connect with the spirit world. The active compound is called salvinorin A, and it's one of the most potent naturally occurring hallucinogens ever discovered. It doesn't work like LSD or mushrooms or even DMT. It binds to your kappa opioid receptors, which are mostly associated with pain and perception. And when they're activated in this way, your brain basically hits the panic switch on reality. Seconds after you inhale it, the room collapses, your body becomes irrelevant, and time turns into a foreign concept. Trips last only 5 to 10 minutes, but that's external time. Inside your head, it can feel like entire lifetimes are passing. Some people say they forget what humans are. Some forget what a self is. It's not uncommon to believe you've become an object, a book, a piece of furniture, a sock. And that brings us to one of the most unforgettable stories on this drug. A Reddit user posted that after he smoked a strong dose of salvia, within seconds he became a sock. He could feel the texture of the carpet beneath his cotton body. He could feel a foot moving inside him, but he no longer knew what feet were. He forgot his name, his language, the idea that he had ever been human. He said the sensation wasn't dreamlike, it was absolutely real. For about 7 minutes, he screamed in a voice he said wasn't his, convinced he was going to stay a sock forever. When he came out of it, he had tears in his eyes and absolutely no desire to ever try it again. Number 3 is Datura. This plant goes by a few names: Jimsonweed, Devil's Trumpet, Moonflower. But whatever you call it, it's not for casual experimentation. Every part of this plant is loaded with tropane alkaloids like scopolamine, atropine, and hyoscyamine. These compounds interfere with your body's ability to send messages through the nervous system. In small amounts, they might cause a little disorientation, but in the doses people usually take to get high, they don't just disrupt reality, they replace it. When you take Datura, your grip on the world vanishes. You see people who aren't there. You speak to them. You hear them talk back. You walk into places you've never seen before and believe they're home. The hallucinations are so vivid and believable that you lose the ability to question anything, including your own actions. Most people don't even realize they're hallucinating until someone else intervenes. One of the most infamous cases comes from Southern California in 2008. 3 teenagers brewed tea from Datura leaves after reading about it online. One of them, a boy named Tyler, ended up wandering into his neighbor's house. Not breaking in, just walking in like he lived there. He believed he was in his own kitchen, trying to cook a sandwich using a remote control and a cigarette lighter. When police arrived, he tried to offer them the sandwich and kept asking if they were demons, trying to steal his bones. His heart rate was dangerously high. He had no memory of leaving his house. He was committed to a hospital psych unit for 2 weeks and suffered lingering short-term memory problems. Number 2 is Etorphine. Etorphine, also known as M99, is a synthetic opioid developed in the 1960s, specifically to tranquilize elephants, rhinos, and other massive wildlife who need to be immobilized for treatment or transport. Even then, wildlife professionals handle it with extreme caution. You don't touch Etorphine. You don't even open a vial without wearing gloves, masks, and having an opioid reversal agent like naloxone ready to fire in case of an accident. The way Etorphine works is brutally efficient. It binds to opioid receptors in the brain, just like morphine or heroin, but with such overwhelming intensity that it shuts down the respiratory system, causes muscle paralysis, and leads to immediate unconsciousness. If there's no intervention, you don't get a second chance. Your lungs simply stop responding, your body forgets how to breathe, and oxygen levels crash within minutes. A chilling real-life case happened in 2015. A wildlife veterinarian in South Africa was preparing a dart for a tranquilization procedure when he accidentally pricked his finger with the needle. That was all it took. Within moments, he collapsed on the ground, convulsing. His assistant tried to call for help, but by the time emergency services arrived, he was already gone. His lungs had completely shut down, and blood was foaming at the mouth from oxygen deprivation. That dart had contained 4 milligrams of Etorphine, enough to kill at least 4 healthy adult humans. Most veterinarians trained to use it carry emergency reversal kits on their belts, just in case of accidental exposure. There are documented instances of people overdosing just by touching contaminated surfaces or breathing in airborne particles from the vial. The first spot goes to Ibogaine. Ibogaine comes from a plant native to Central Africa. For centuries, it's been used in spiritual ceremonies where people take it to experience deep visions, connect with ancestors, and undergo powerful rites of passage. But outside of that context, Ibogaine has found a controversial second life as a last resort treatment for addiction, especially to opioids. What makes Ibogaine unique is that it doesn't just alter consciousness, it actually resets the brain's opioid receptors. For people addicted to heroin or fentanyl or oxy, that means a single experience can remove the physical cravings entirely. Sounds like a miracle, right? But there's a cost. Ibogaine doesn't guide you gently through your trauma. It digs it up, throws it in your face, and sits you down with it for 24 hours straight. The trip is long, intense, and emotionally violent. People report reliving their worst memories, childhood abuse, overdoses, deaths of loved ones. They face these things not as distant memories, but as real-time experiences happening again in vivid, unbearable detail. It also comes with powerful physical side effects, including constant vomiting, tremors, heart arrhythmias, even full cardiac arrest. Ibogaine has been linked to fatal heart complications, especially in people with pre-existing conditions or electrolyte imbalances. It's banned in the US and only administered legally in countries like Mexico or New Zealand, usually in clinical settings with constant cardiac monitoring. One of the most haunting stories comes from 2014. A man named Michael, a longtime heroin addict, traveled to an Ibogaine clinic in Mexico. He'd tried rehab half a dozen times but relapsed every time and was desperate. The dose he took was carefully measured based on his weight, his drug history, and his health. But what followed wasn't peaceful. About 12 hours into the trip, he began hallucinating his dead father, but not the comforting version people hoped to see. This father was peeling the skin off his own face, slowly revealing Michael's face underneath. Michael screamed for hours, saying his bones were turning inside out. He vomited into his lap and cried for what he said felt like days. When the experience ended, he said the cravings were completely gone, but something else had changed too. "I'm clean," he said, "but I left a part of me in that room that I don't want back." Well, that's it for now, Chookies. I trust you to never want to touch any of these devil drugs. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe before you start waiting for the next video. Bye.